Good morning, everyone, and a Chag Sameach, happy Yom Haatzmaut to everyone. Wonderful quiz last night with our KLBD Roadshow, and Mazel Tov to Rachel Lewis and to Colin Harris on winning those hampers from KLBD. Well done to you. The hampers are on the way to you, and we're all on the way to eat the hampers with you. Anyways, today's learning is dedicated in memory of Ami Bat Aryeh, Paul Casimir, Tzipora Feigel Bas Reuven Baruch, Yirmiyahu Yechir ben Moshe Eliezer, Shlomo Yechir ben Moshe Eliezer, Ben Zion Aryeh ben Shimon, Leah Bas Bible, Avram Mordechai ben Moshe Katna. Wish all their families long life and only simchas. So we're going to speak a bit about Israel today. Yes, Rachel's just come on. Mazel Tov. You can all do your post-award speeches, your Oscar-winning speeches, acceptance speeches later. Okay, so I want to speak to you a bit about Israel today. So what is the feeling? Let me just turn this on silent. What is the feeling that we should all have on Yom Haatzmaut? So I saw a video, and the video at first made me very proud. It was a video about, I think we've seen them all before. It's a video about the success of Israel, in particular, its military prowess, its military, success, and the fact that it can achieve and has achieved anything and everything under the sun. And that is all, of course, true. But there was something that bothered me tremendously about this inspirational, motivational little clip about the state of Israel. And I felt that there was one thing that was missing. There's no question. I was just reading before, about the Valley of Tears and some of in the Yom Kippur War, and how, a handful of soldiers literally held back battalions of Syrian tanks. There are extraordinary stories. And, from its inception, we forget the way Israel looked. The state of Israel, when it became a state in 1948, it was a swampland. It was a desert. And, they made a desert bloom, as they say. So what is the feeling that we should have? Where should Israel be going? And what do we hope for the future? I think that's what we want to cover. I'm still trying to piece it together. So hopefully it'll be a collaborative effort. Let me just say good morning and a Chag Sameach to Michael, Caroline, Andy, Peter, Joe, Rachel, Andrea, David, Michael, Rachel, Estelle. Anyone I've missed? Joe, Andrea, Carol, and Caroline. Good morning to everyone that are still joining us. So let's make a start. I think the starting point, the Maharal of Prague always says that the starting point with all these things is to go back to the first place that we find the name Yisrael, right? Where does the word Israel come from? Yeah, I remember, it's funny that I don't know if you remember Mr. T. Anyone here remember Mr. T? I'm talking about Ben Yehuda in Israel when we were all youngsters. So it's a T-shirt shop, and they also have it's a tourist shop on Ben Yehuda, and where they sell T-shirts and bags and all the knickknacks that you need to buy before coming back from Israel when you're younger. Anyway, so they had this T-shirt. The T-shirt. One place said, don't worry, Israel, America's behind you. But then the other T-shirt said, don't worry, America, Israel's behind you, right? So I actually think that the truth is that Israel's come to realize that it doesn't actually require or is reliant on any other country, or it shouldn't be. Where did the name Israel come from? So the name Israel came from that epic battle and encounter that we're all familiar with between Jacob and the celestial mysterious being. And we know that Jacob was left on his own. Esau was after him. He'd split his camp, split his family. Half were on one side, half had gone one direction, half had gone another direction. Similar to Israel today, you've got the state of Israel and you've got diaspora. So the Jewish camp, as it were, is split in two, and all of a sudden, a mysterious, unidentifiable assailant attacks him in the middle of the night, and they wrestle. We're told, "Vayivaseh imo ish ad alos hashachar." So somebody struggled with Jacob. Jacob struggled with him until daybreak. And it was towards daybreak, when they were struggling, that the mystery assailant dislocated Jacob's thigh, and Jacob held on for dear life. He wasn't letting go. And it was at that moment what happened. The mystery adversary said, you got to let me go. It's daybreak, right? It wasn't a physical entity. We're dealing with a celestial being that had to return to the heavenly abode. And Jacob said, I won't let you go until you tell me your name and until you bless me. And the mystery assailant said, gave Jacob a blessing. Lo yikra shema Yaakov ki im Yisrael. Your name is no longer going to be Jacob. From now on, you're going to be known as Israel. And why? And the Torah tells us that this celestial being said that because you have struggled and you have prevailed. You have struggled and you have prevailed. What does that all tell us about? And in fact, the angel, despite Jacob asking his name, he doesn't tell the name to Jacob. Why doesn't he tell the name? And the truth is because this was the adversary to Israel, to the Jewish people. And there was no point in saying the name, because we have faced many different adversaries, many different enemies have attacked us from the front, from the rear, in terms of armies, in terms of groups, fascists and Nazis and right wings and pogroms and crusades and Tachvatat and the Spanish Inquisition. The list goes on and on. There is hardly a nation in this world that has not attacked or been anti-Semitic towards the Jewish people at some point in their history. But the point is, therefore, the angel did not want to say his name, because it was a pointless saying the name, because it mutates, it morphs. The challenge that we face as a nation, it changes. It used to be that the enemy was from the outside, and now, thank God things have been peaceful for the last couple of years, relatively speaking. But very often we can face an enemy from within, right? We can have disguised Arabs dressed up as Orthodox Jews that are blowing themselves up, people walking along looking as Israelis and blowing up buses and so on and so forth. So therefore there was no point in saying the name. But the name Yisroel, so the name of our adversary, we never know. It morphs and it changes every time, in every generation. Right? As we say in Haggadah, B'chol dor v'dor, in every generation they come and try to attack us, right? But HaKadosh Baruch Hu matzilenu miyadam, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu saves us from them. And the name Yisrael means that Yasha Kel, straight with God. And that is the hallmark of what it means to be a Jew, and that is what the hallmark of what Israel is meant to be. That there is that uprightness, that straightness that we have towards our mission, that we are not going to be thrown off kilter. We're not going to be thrown off the path. We recognize who we are, that we are God's people here with a mission. We don't believe we're superior. We do believe that we have a mission in this world. And our mission is to be that light to the nations, to be able to inspire everyone around us. And that is what Israel has done, and that is what Israel will continue to do, through the innovation, through the philanthropy, through the outreach, the campaigns that it has to help nations with technology, with education, going to worse off places. We had an Israeli woman who we interviewed earlier this year. You may remember her, an extraordinary woman whose mission it was and is to bring fresh water to all the African nations and countries. And there are millions upon millions of people in Africa that are blessed with electricity and water. And you know why? Because of Israel. So it's not that we want to keep that wisdom, that wealth, that blessing to ourselves. But as in days gone by, the idea is that we are able to share that light with the world around us. But I think it is important to bear in mind that name, right? That name of Yasha Kel, that we are straight with God. We have to be straight. We have to be honest. And we have to ensure that the values that we believe in and that have been the hallmark of being Jewish stay with us as a state. There is a danger, and I think we've seen it in recent history, that that power corrupts, and that leadership and leaders can be influenced by what goes on outside, by other nations, by other countries, by other leaders. And the hallmark of what makes Israel so special is that we are true to ourselves and that we are able to be that light. It doesn't matter what the enemy is, as we saw in that epic dream. Jacob limped away at the end of his encounter, but he knew that he would be able, despite the underhand measures that we have always faced by our enemies, he was able to stay straight, to stay true, and to be able to overcome whatever challenges and adversary he faced and we face. And therefore, I think that ultimately that is the only way that we will succeed. The way that we will be is to be true to ourselves, to be honest in government, to be honest and straight in our dealings with all of those in society. And in that way, we'll be able to build a just and a correct and a truthful, honest society with tremendous integrity. We can all be proud today of the accomplishments of Israel. Celebrations will continue tonight with Technion UK. We'll put it up on Facebook, and it has been sent out, and we look forward to seeing everyone join us there. But I think the key and the hallmark is that I think we need to all make an effort. It's been COVID, we've been distracted, but now to strengthen our bond and our connection for us and for our families with Israel. And hopefully we really hope and pray that Israel as a country and as a nation, and we are part of Israel, that we should see tremendous prosperity and success, health and growth in all areas of life. But in particular, as we mentioned yesterday, that the bond and the sense of unity in the state of Israel should become closer, and we should forge a relationship and a close bond of love and fraternity between all members of the nation of Israel, both inside Israel and outside Israel. That is my fervent wish and my hope and prayer. You know, people always ask me, I went to Israel, Rabbi, I got off the plane, and they were so argumentative. They were so argumentative. Well, we are called a stiff-necked nation. I was thinking about this. Why is it, you get into a taxi and you say shalom, and he says immediately boker tov. And you say boker tov, and he says shalom. You start telling him you're from Israel, you're from England, and he'll start telling you all about England, and he'll argue with you till you're blue in the face. Whatever you say black, he says white. You say coffee, he says tea, whatever it is. 1 hour. I remember from the airport of Ben Gurion, last trip I went on a tribe trip all the way to the destination, was just arguing. It was wonderful. Anyways, why do they do it? Golda Meir famously said that Israel is a nation that refuses to take yes as an answer. That a way that we have succeeded and that we have endured and overcome all the obstacles is precisely because we are a stiff-necked nation. In other words, that we have that gritty determination, the determination of a David Ben Gurion, of a Golda Meir, of a Rabin, and all the others, the great leaders of our nation, of our people. And therefore, we have to ensure that we stick to our guns and that we are not adversely influenced or impacted by the other norms in other societies around the world. But having said that, I think there is a danger in Israel of complacency, of indifference, of resting on our laurels, of patting ourselves on the back year after year and saying, we've made it, we've got it, we're wealthy, we're successful. there is still tremendous work to do for Israel. I think if we are honest, and family are always honest with each other, there is tremendous work in terms of the inequalities between in the race in the races of Israel, between blacks and the whites, Sephardi, Ashkenazi, between the differentials in wealth, right, which need to be more equalized in society, and the opportunities that Israelis have to be equalized, and between the Orthodox and the non-Orthodox. Yeah, there has to be a way forward. We interviewed earlier this year J.J. Sussman, who's in charge of Gesher, that incredible organization that literally the word means bridge, that builds a bridge between left and right, between Orthodox and non-Orthodox. We're all one. We're all one country, one people, one nation, and that's who we are. We are Israel. And now with that, we'll conclude with, in honor, I think Estelle is watching, a song of David. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He causes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even as I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You set a table before me in the presence of my adversaries. You anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days. Memorial prayer. Adon Olamim Zacho Es Nishmais. Ami Bat Ari, Paul Kazmet, Sipora Pegel was with Barak, Yeriel, Yechiel ben Moshe Eliezer, Shlomo Yechiel ben Moshe Eliezer, Ben Sion ben Moshe, Aryeh ben Shimon, Leah Bas Fiber, Rabbi Mordechai ben Moshe Katna, Shalchol Yimon Began, Eden Taimenucha, Sam Lachim Balarachamim, Yasirei Veseisa Kanapabelamim, Yetozachim Shasamana, Nachlasam, Yanuchu Bishlomish Kavam, Vanamar, Amen. Lastly, Misha Berach of Saint Roman Yaakov Moshe Aaron David Shlomo. Vivarech Rab Pesach Chayim Babu Shanim Mispalim Babu Ram This was a Kosh Baruch Hu Yimale Rachma Leim Lachma Lafasam Yishlach Leim Meheru Fushlim Nishmaim Lochal Levim V'so Shach Yisrael Rafo Sadef Shfusakov Hashem Svaka Rif Benoma. Amen. Wouldn't it be wonderful one day that we all go together to Israel? I remember we went to Tel HaShomer Hospital. It was we happened to be there for a wedding. A lot of us, Operation Cast Lead, I think it was, and we went into Tel HaShomer Hospital, and somebody had brought out Arsenal sweatshirts, and these guys had not come out of their rooms. They had been injured in the wars, and they were very depressed. And we went there, weren't expecting anything, and they just showered us with love. We came out, we went to strengthen them, they strengthened us. And that's the way it is. We're all brothers, we're all sisters, we're in this together. Wishing Israel Mazel Tov, L'chaim, to many more years of health and happiness. Look after yourself. Have a great